Right? Doesn't that look scary?
Video of yours that I watched today was a video that showed the similarities, not just between pyramids, but between construction methods all over the world. In Japan, I had no idea that they had made the sarcophagus covers in Japan that were exactly the same shape as the one, and oddly shaped, exactly the same as the ones they made in Egypt.
And in a place, there is supposed to be zero connection between ancient Japan and ancient Egypt. That's not supposed to exist. And if you compare that sarcophagus work, it's like it looks uncannily similar.
Impossible, almost impossible that two people would come up with the same design.
Right.
Because it's like coming up with, I don't know, I mean, I don't have a good, like if someone like this lighter, if someone this is an unusually shaped lighter, the way the top pops, if someone just coincidentally without any internet came up with this on the other side of the planet, you'd be like, how the fuck? It's so oddly shaped.
Yeah.
Like the button's in the same place, the lid's in the same place. There's no way.
Right.
That's what it looks like to me. And the fact that it took an enormous amount of effort to make and move and put it into place, because you're talking about incredibly heavy stone.
And hard stone.
Yes.
Like that's the other, people don't appreciate just how hard this igneous stone is that these things are made from. Like granite, granodiorite, cyanite, like it's harder than steel. Like it's there's 6.57 on the Mohs scale. It's incredible work.
And the fact that these similar construction methods existed in Peru, they existed in Egypt, they existed in Japan, and we don't know how old stone is.
Right.
That's what's really wacky. When we talk about like carbon dating, they're not carbon dating stone. No. They really don't know. So even when they go back to ancient Egypt and they say, oh, we date the pyramids construction to 2,500 BC, it's a fucking guess.
That's what I think.
It's a guess.
It really is.
It has to be a guess. It really can't be anything other than a guess. They can measure organic matter. They can measure stuff that's in between the stones, but we have no idea when that was put there. If something existed for tens of thousands of years before we're dating it, we really wouldn't know. Well, we would have evidence that of course people would still live there. Of course people would still live around them. And we would have evidence that those people had left stuff behind that was a certain age, but we have zero evidence as to how old those things are.
Right.
That's right.
And when I found that out, I was baffled.
Yeah.
Because I always thought they knew 2,500 BC, rock solid. This is it.
Well, they tie it to the guy, the king. They know when Khufu lived, and so they try and tie. And literally, with the Great Pyramid, very little evidence. There's like this big statue of him that they found down in the Valley Temple, nowhere near it. And then there's a glyph on the inside. There's a lot of controversy around that. But there are some of these artifacts. They do for that reason, because they date a lot of stuff based on the site that they found it. So if there's organic material at the site that they found it, and I've found it's a kind of like a smoking gun piece in all of this, is all the vases. So are you familiar with the incredible stone vases that they make in Egypt?
Please talk about them.
Yeah, so there is a collection of these things. They're made from igneous stone. And Jamie, I've got a few pictures of the vases in that vase directory, and they date back. It's what's interesting to me about these is that they're some of the earliest types of artifacts that we find. They stretch back far into what we'd call pre-dynastic time, basically Mesolithic times. Right back to even 15,000 years ago, there was a site called Toshka that was dug up. It's underwater now, but and it was a primitive burial. There was a guy that was curled up in this burial site on the side.
Go back to that, Jamie, that one, the thin card one.
Yeah,
what's going on there?
So this is an example, and these vases display just astonishing aspects of precision and engineering. So this is an example of just how thin this material is. So it's igneous stone. This might be porphyry or something like this. A very, very hard stone, very hard to work, but also brittle when it becomes thin. You can see the giant crystal occlusions, the white marks in it. This stuff becomes brittle, yet it's been worked down to this thinness because this one's been damaged, and you can see how thin that interior wall is. Flinders Petrie is the great Egyptologist, the first guy to really start applying engineering principles from the industrial age to this stuff. He found one, he talks about one in his work that was 1/40th of an inch thick. Wow. 1/40th of an inch thick. And the interesting thing about these vases, there's 50,000 plus of them were discovered beneath the Step Pyramid of Djoser. He collected them all up, and even in the museum that's at Saqqara, they talk about, this is so. I've been down underneath the Step Pyramid. This is a fragment of one of these vases that I found you can handle down there. And even in the museum there, they talk about, he didn't have them made. These were inherited objects from earlier times. Like they get the concept right. And so these things stretch back way back into time. There's pre-dynastic artifacts from pre-dynastic burials. But there's always these sort of arguments, well, can you do this by hand? Can you not? And so recently there's been some work done. I've been working with a couple of guys, the son of Christopher Dunn, who wrote some real seminal textbooks on ancient Egyptian technology. His son Alex and Nick Sierra, they're professional metrologists. They work for Rolls-Royce in Indianapolis. They make aerospace parts, turbine blades, things like that. They've got their hands on a pre-dynastic Egyptian vase, and for the first time, they've actually been able to scan this thing using a structured light scanner and define the specific elements of precision on it, and it's just astounding. Like this puts the whole concept of can these even remotely been made by hand to bed. Like these things had to have been made on a machine and made with extreme precision, because this vase that is pre-dynastic, this is a picture of the vase here that they found in a private collection, because I should say generally archaeologists, Egyptologists, they're not engineers. They're not particularly interested in sort of how things were manufactured. So what they've done is they've taken this and put this in a machine, and it's a structured light scanner, so it creates like a point cloud of different lights, and then you match a geometric shape to it, be that like a flat plane, a cylinder, a sphere, a cone, and then you can perform sort of geometric calculations on it and define things like precision. So if you go back to that, the surface A, the vase lip, right? So this is, you can see down on the bottom, they've created a point cloud of the top of this lip, so the flatness, and they've called this surface A. It's comprised of 3,813 points, and it's within 3,000ths of an inch of being basically perfectly flat.
Wow.
But that's
3,000ths of an inch.
3,000ths of an inch.
And this is over who knows how many thousands of years of erosion and sand and dust and wind.
Exactly. It's at least 5,000 years old. I suspect this could be far older than that. Now, what's interesting, once you start doing this, and if you go to the next one, Jamie, now we're looking at the lip. So you take a cylinder and you basically take 10,000 points plus, and you match the inside, the mouth of the vase to a cylinder, and what you can now measure that against the other surface. So if you think of like the top of it as being like the x-axis, this is now your y-axis. So that first symbol here, the perpendicular symbol, what it's showing is that how perpendicular is this cylinder on its axis relative to the top of the vase, the surface A that's on the top, within 1,000th of an inch.
1,000.
So it's perfectly perpendicular to within 1,000th of an inch of the top of the vase.